You can sleep on the couch, or better yet, get a hotel room, my daughter-in-law said, when her parents suddenly moved in with us, as if they owned the place. It would be better if you left. We won't have enough room for 5, her father added with a sneer. I moved out in silence, but a week later panic set in for them. This is impossible. This can't be happening. My daughter-in-law screamed after what I did. She didn't know this was just the beginning of my revenge. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel on the button below. The February morning air felt crisp on my face as I turned the corner onto the main street. My water bottle was nearly empty after an hour of walking through the neighborhood. At 62, I had learned to appreciate these early routines. 7 o'clock, same route, same comfortable track jacket I had worn for 5 winters in this region. My knees protested less when I kept them moving. Then I saw the truck. It was a budget rental, boxy and white, parked in my driveway like an unwanted monument. It blocked the garage completely, forcing me to stop on the sidewalk. My pulse quickened, but not from the exercise. Confusion flooded me, followed immediately by something darker. I approached the front door, noticing it was slightly ajar. Inside, my living room had transformed into something unrecognizable. Precarious towers of cardboard boxes formed against the walls I had painted myself 3 summers ago. My furniture, the sectional sofa, the oak coffee table, the floor lamp, had all been shoved aside carelessly. 2 strangers occupied the space as if it belonged to them. The man was my age, maybe a bit younger, with a thick build and thinning gray hair. He wore a faded polo shirt tucked into jeans that sat too high on his waist, and his voice boomed through the room as he directed traffic. The woman beside him frowned at a box marked fragile, her face set in a permanent expression of disapproval. She wore too much perfume. I could smell it from the entryway, something floral and overwhelming. My son Daniel brushed past them with difficulty, carrying a box labeled kitchen in black marker. His face was red. I didn't know if it was from the exertion or something else. Behind him, Sarah, my daughter-in-law, wiped her hands on her jeans and finally noticed I was standing there. "Oh, you're back," she said, as if I had been gone for weeks instead of an hour. "What is going on here?" I kept my voice level, professional. 35 years in logistics management had taught me to assess situations before reacting. Sarah tilted her head slightly. A gesture I had learned meant she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. "Dad, Daniel didn't tell you? My parents sold their house and need a place to stay for a few months while they close the deal on their new condo. It will be fine. We are family." The way she called me Dad while using a formal tone landed like a small blade between my ribs. I turned to my son, who had just set down his box with a dull thud. "Daniel." He didn't look at me. "Dad, I was going to tell you, but things moved fast. Sarah's parents needed help. I thought you would understand. Understand that strangers are moving into my house without asking me." "It is our house too, Dad," Daniel said quietly, still avoiding my eyes. "Sarah and I live here. We make decisions together." The fact that they had lived here rent-free for 2 years seemed to have slipped his memory. I watched him pick up another box and disappear toward the stairs, his shoulders hunched like a man expecting a blow. The stranger in the polo shirt, Henry, I learned later, dropped into my recliner with a grunt of satisfaction. My recliner. The one I had sat in every night for 8 years, reading or watching the news, or just thinking in the quiet hours after everyone else went to bed. "This chair has seen better days," Henry announced to no one in particular. "When did you buy it?" "The 80s. 8 years ago," I said. "Feels older. You might want to upgrade it while we are here. The place could use some updates." I said nothing. He smiled, mistaking my silence for weakness when it was actually calculation. The woman, Rose, had moved into my kitchen, opening cabinets and rearranging contents with the casual authority of someone who belonged there. The rest of the day passed in a haze of wrongness. I retreated to my bedroom while they unloaded box after box, claiming territory inch by inch. In the silence behind my closed door, I pulled the fireproof safe from my closet and took out the deed to the house. My name appeared there, alone. No co-signers, no joint ownership. I had worked for this place. I paid every mortgage payment on time for 15 years before paying off the loan completely in 2019. This house was mine. That clarity steadied something inside me. Dinner brought fresh humiliation. We gathered around the table I had built with my own hands. Solid oak assembled piece by piece in this very room. Henry dominated the conversation immediately, his voice filling every corner. "It is too cold in here," he said, gesturing vaguely at the walls. "What do you have the thermostat set to? 66 degrees?" 72, I replied. 72? That is practically tropical. We will have to talk about house rules if we are all going to live together. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. Rose picked at her food. Then she looked up with feigned concern. "Is the guest room always this small? My dresser barely fits in there." "It is a standard bedroom," I said. "More than enough space for something temporary." "Well, I guess we will manage," Rose interrupted, her tone suggesting a huge personal sacrifice. "Although I don't know how you lived comfortably here. Henry and I are used to more space." Sarah reached out and touched her mother's arm sympathetically, completely ignoring the way my grip tightened on my fork. Daniel studied his plate as if it contained answers to questions he was too afraid to ask. I tried to talk to my son alone after dinner, cornering him in the garage while the others settled in front of the TV. My TV, tuned to a channel I never watched, the volume louder than I ever set it. "Son, what is going on? Why didn't you talk to me about this?" Daniel finally looked at me, but couldn't hold the gaze. "It just happened fast. Sarah's parents needed help. I thought you would understand. It is just a few months. A few months living in my house without asking me. It is our house too, Dad." He brushed past me, heading for the door. "Sarah and I live here. We make decisions together." He disappeared inside before I could point out the obvious. They lived here because I allowed it. Out of love and generosity. Without ever asking for rent, without demanding timelines. Late that night, unable to sleep, I went to the kitchen for water. Thirst had become an excuse to move through my own home. To verify what I already knew was happening, I opened the cabinet where I kept my mugs and found everything rearranged. My favorite, a simple blue ceramic piece my late wife had given me 20 years ago, had been pushed to the back, almost hidden. In its place, floral rose teacups were front and center, arranged as if they had always been there. I stood holding that blue mug in the dark, the cold tile under my bare feet. Something crystallized inside me then. It wasn't rage. Rage was hot and temporary. This was colder, harder. It was the feeling I got at my old job when a problem needed solving, when emotion would only cloud the necessary calculations. They thought I was weak. They thought I would accept this invasion because I was old, because I was alone, because Daniel was my son and family meant swallowing indignities with a smile. They were wrong. I placed the mug back in its new position. I turned off the light and returned to my bedroom. Tomorrow would bring new violations, I was sure. But I had learned something valuable tonight. I had learned exactly who I was dealing with. 3 days changed everything. 72 hours of systematic invasion. Each little violation adding weight to the pressure building in my chest. Henry changed the thermostat 6 times. I counted them, always turning it down to 66 or 68 degrees, until the house felt like winter had moved inside. My favorite parking spot disappeared daily, claimed by his old truck with faded paint and a rusted bumper. In the bathroom, my toiletries had been relocated to a lower shelf, making room for the extensive collection of rose lotions, powders, and creams that multiplied like bacteria. On Tuesday morning, I discovered Sarah had opened my mail, a bank statement. My personal correspondence lay on the counter with the envelope carelessly torn open. "I thought it might be important," she said when I asked, not looking up from her phone. But on Wednesday night, I returned from a walk to find my leftovers gone. The pasta I had made Monday night, carefully portioned for 2 more meals, had vanished. Henry was sitting in my chair, his chair now apparently, picking his teeth with casual satisfaction. "It was good," he said. "You should make more." I didn't respond. My logistical brain was tracking everything, building a database of offenses without my conscious direction. It is what I had done for 35 years. Notice patterns, identify problems, calculate solutions. Thursday morning at 6:30, I went downstairs and found everyone already gathered in the kitchen. This was wrong immediately. Daniel and Sarah never got up before 7:30. Henry usually slept until 8. Rose complained about the morning light. Yet here they were, sitting, coffee made, toast prepared, waiting. They had been waiting for me. Sarah sat with her back straight, hands clasped on the table, her business presentation posture. Henry looked pleased, leaning back in his chair like a judge preparing to deliver a verdict. Rose picked at her food without eating. Daniel studied his eggs with unusual intensity. "Dad, we need to talk about the sleeping arrangements," Sarah began. The words were rehearsed, delivered with corporate efficiency. "With 5 adults in the house, we are running out of space." I carefully set down my coffee mug. 5 adults? This house has 3 bedrooms. Exactly. Daniel and I have one. My parents have the guest room, and you have the master. But my parents need storage space. So you could sleep on the couch for a few weeks. Or honestly, a hotel might be more comfortable. The audacity of it stole my breath for a moment. "Are you asking me to leave my bedroom? In my house?" Sarah's expression settled into a practiced patience, the kind managers use with difficult employees. "It isn't just your house, Dad. Daniel lives here too. We are trying to make this work for everyone." Before I could formulate a response, Henry interrupted, his voice cutting through the morning air with casual cruelty. "Let's be realistic here. 5 people in this place is too many. Someone has to make room." I turned to look directly at him. "Make room? Who do you suggest?" "Well, you are retired. You have time and flexibility. The rest of us have jobs, responsibilities. It makes sense for you to find somewhere else temporarily. Maybe permanently we could come to some arrangement." "An arrangement? For my house?" Henry shrugged, the gesture dismissing decades of my work, my mortgage payments, my life. "I am just being practical. No need to get sentimental about it." I looked at my son. He was the only person at this table who mattered, the only one whose opinion could change what happened next. "Daniel, look at me." He raised his eyes slowly, but couldn't hold my gaze. The weakness in his face told me everything. "Do you want me to leave?" "Dad, His voice barely crossed the table. "It isn't that simple. Sarah's parents need help. It is just temporary. We are trying to figure it out. I didn't ask if it is temporary. I asked if you want me to leave my own house." Daniel went back to his eggs, the fork scraping against the plate in the silence. "Can we not make this harder than it has to be?" I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, loud in the quiet kitchen. Rose spoke then, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Arthur, dear, we aren't trying to kick you out, but you have to understand. At our age, we need certain comforts. That guest room is barely big enough for our bed. We need space for Henry's clothes, my shoes, our personal items. Surely you see that." "I see that you moved into my house without asking, and now you want me to leave it." Her expression shifted to wounded innocence. "There is no need for that attitude. We are family. Family helps each other." "Family asks first." I walked out of the kitchen. I went up the stairs to my bedroom. Behind me, I heard the murmur of voices. Henry saying something like, "Stubborn old man." I closed the door and looked around the room that had been mine for 16 years. The bed I had shared with my wife before cancer took her. The dresser that held clothes I had bought with money I had earned. The window overlooking a garden I had maintained every weekend. I pulled my suitcase from the closet. 90 minutes later, I descended the stairs with a rolling suitcase, a box of documents, and my laptop bag. They had moved to the living room, settled on the furniture like an audience waiting for the show to continue. Henry had claimed my armchair again. Rose sat next to Sarah on the sofa. Daniel was standing by the window, his posture defensive. Sarah saw the suitcase first. "Oh, are you really leaving?" I kept my hand on the doorknob. "You told me to leave." "I am leaving." Daniel finally spoke, turning away from the window. "Dad, wait. We can talk about this. You already made your decision at breakfast when you said nothing." I walked out, closing the door behind me with a firm click, not a slam. I am not a door-slamming man, but final enough for them to hear. Through the window, I saw them frozen in a tableau, watching my car pull away from the curb. Rose's mouth was moving, probably offering some comment I was grateful not to hear. The Desert Sun Motel was on a busy avenue, 12 minutes from the house if traffic cooperated. The building was nothing special. 2 stories of stucco, painted the color of sand, doors facing an exterior corridor. But it was clean, quiet, and most importantly, it was a space no one had invaded. The receptionist was a young woman named Emily, her name tag slightly crooked on her uniform. She looked at my face. I don't know what she saw there, but her expression softened. "How many nights?" "I am not sure yet. Let's start with a week. She typed on her computer, then paused. I'm going to put you in 214. It has a desk. Looks like you need space to think. The first kindness I had felt in 4 days. Thank you. The room smelled of industrial cleaning products and old carpet, but it had what I needed. A bed, a desk, a chair, a bathroom, and silence. I put my suitcase by the closet and took my document box to the desk. I spread them out methodically. Deed here, property tax records there, mortgage payoff statement to the left. In the center, I placed an old spiral notebook from 2022, the one where I documented the $35,000 loan to Daniel for his car. Never repaid, not even acknowledged. My laptop opened to a search engine. I typed, State Property Law, Homeowner Rights. The hours passed. My instant coffee grew cold in its styrofoam cup. The afternoon sun moved across the wall, then faded into night. I read about guests versus tenants, about the distinction between people who have leases and people who simply occupy a space. I learned about notice requirements, about revocation of permission, about the legal right to exclude others from property you own. By midnight, my hotel notepad had 3 pages of careful notes. The TV in the room next door murmured through the wall. Someone's late-night programming. Outside, cars passed on the busy avenue, headlights sweeping across my curtains. I leaned back in the desk chair and looked at everything before me. The evidence of ownership, the proof of betrayal, the legal basis for what would come next. They had made a mistake, several mistakes. In fact, they had assumed I was weak because I was older. I was alone because I had stayed calm instead of exploding. They had mistaken patience for powerlessness. That was going to cost them. I opened a fresh page in my notebook and began a log of grievances. Those were already documented in my memory. Each little violation catalogued with perfect clarity. This was different. This was a plan. Step 1 started tomorrow, first thing. The next morning arrived with the same institutional coffee and the same documents, scattered across surfaces like evidence at a crime scene. I had been at the Desert Sun Motel for a full day. By the 7th day, the maid had stopped offering to clean. She had peeked through the door at my organized chaos and retreated in silence. I woke every morning at 5:30. I made coffee in the little machine that sputtered and hissed. Then I went back to my work. The deed was in the center of the desk, surrounded by concentric circles of supporting documentation. Property tax receipts dating back to 2008. Insurance policies listing only my name. Mortgage statements showing 17 years of payments. Each one made by me. From my account. Never late. On the 4th day, searching through old emails on my laptop, I found something I had almost forgotten. May of 2022. Daniel needed a car for his new job. The dealership required $35,000 down. His email was right there, preserved in my inbox. Dad, this is a loan, not a gift. I will pay you back $1,000 a month starting next month. You have my word. I had transferred the money that same day. The bank confirmation was in my downloads folder. From 3 years ago, but perfectly valid. I searched for payment records. Nothing. Not a single dollar returned. I checked every account. I reviewed 3 years of statements. The loan had simply evaporated from Daniel's memory like morning fog. I created a spreadsheet in the Motel Business Center, printing it on their slightly gray paper. 36 months. 36 missed payments. The numbers told a more damning story than any accusation I could voice. The 5th day. Mrs. Davis called. Her voice conveyed apology and concern in equal measure. Arthur, I hope I am not intruding, but last night there were at least 8 cars parked on your lawn. The music was so loud my windows rattled. 8 cars. Some kind of gathering. It lasted until past midnight. I almost called the police, but I wasn't sure if you had authorized it. I didn't. I am not even there right now. Her pause contained questions she was too polite to ask. Oh, well, that explains things. I saw your truck wasn't there all week. Are you all right? I will be. Thank you for telling me. After she hung up, I added her call to my notes. Mr. Carter had called 2 days earlier, mentioning he had run into Henry at the mailbox. He was telling me about his new house, his address. I thought you should know. They weren't just occupying my house. They were claiming ownership of it. On the 6th day, I drove to the historic downtown. The law firm was in a restored building with traditional architecture, the kind tourists photographed. Reynolds and Associates occupied the second floor. Margaret Reynolds was 48, with graying hair pulled back in an efficient bun and eyes that assessed me in seconds. I handed her the 2-page summary I had prepared: dates, names, chronological incidents. She read it in 4 minutes without interrupting. "Most clients come in emotional and disorganized," she said, looking up. "You have done my job for me. I spent 35 years in logistics. I know how to present information." She spread the state's revised statutes across her desk, showing me highlighted sections. "Mr. Vance, let me be direct. This is your house. Your name on the deed. 5 owners? No. 1 owner. You. They have no legal basis. My daughter-in-law said it is Daniel's house too, that he lives there, so he makes decisions. Living somewhere does not confer ownership. I could live in a mansion for a year. It wouldn't make it mine. Your son is essentially a guest in your home, an adult son living rent-free." The words landed with unexpected weight. "Rent-free, for 3 years, which means you have been more than generous," she continued. "Generosity has limits. They found yours." We discussed the eviction notice. She explained that Henry and Rose, having no lease or rental agreement, were simply guests. The law was clear. I could revoke their permission to stay. 30 days' notice was required, not out of courtesy, but legal necessity. "What exactly will this notice say?" I asked. "It will state that Henry and Rose Miller are occupying your property without a lease or rental agreement. As guests, their welcome has been revoked. They have 30 days to vacate, per state law. After 30 days, if they remain, we file for formal eviction through the courts." "And what about Daniel and Sarah?" She paused, tapping her pen against the notepad. "They are trickier due to the length of their stay. But here is the thing. They do not own the property. You can start charging them rent, effective immediately, or you can serve them a similar notice. It is your choice. I want everyone out. Then we will start with the Millers. The legal path is clearer there." She drafted the notice while I waited, her fingers efficient on the keyboard. The document came out of her printer on letterhead paper, looking official and intimidating. Bold headers, legal citations, clean formatting. We walked down the hall to Thomas Moore's office. Thomas was 55, meticulous, with reading glasses hanging from a chain. He reviewed the notice carefully, checked my driver's license against the deed. Then he applied his notary seal with the gravity of someone who understood that documents had power. "This is ironclad," he said, handing it back. "They will have no recourse." Then he looked at me directly. "Mr. Vance, I have to ask, are you prepared for how they will react? I expect them to be angry. Angry people do unpredictable things. Make sure you document everything. If they damage property, call the police immediately. If they threaten you, request a restraining order. This paper protects you legally, but it doesn't protect you physically. I have known my son for 37 years. He isn't violent." "No, but you don't know Henry Miller, and desperate people surprise you." I took the warning seriously. That night, back in my motel room, I added research security cameras to my notes. Margaret called before I went to sleep. "One more thing. When you serve this notice, do not get emotionally involved. Hand it to them, or better yet, tape it to the door. Do not argue. Do not justify. Do not apologize. The document speaks for itself. They will call me. My son will call. Then keep answers brief. This is my legal right. The notice explains everything. Contact my lawyer if you have questions. Do not let yourself be dragged into emotional manipulation. I spent a week being manipulated. It is over." Her slight smile came through in her voice. "Good. Keep that resolve. People like Henry Miller rely on others backing down. Don't give him that satisfaction." I sat on the motel bed that night, the notarized notice in my hands. The paper felt heavier than it should, loaded with consequences. Tomorrow, everything would change. I was ready for it. 8 days after they forced me out, I returned home. Thursday morning, 10:30. I had chosen the time deliberately. Daniel and Sarah left for work at 8. Their car was gone, confirmed by a text from Mrs. Davis, who had become my unexpected surveillance network. The Millers followed a predictable pattern. Morning walk at 9:30. Return around 11:30. I had a 2-hour window. My truck pulled into the driveway. My spot, reclaimed. The house looked the same from the outside, but I knew it wasn't. I approached the front door with my old key, half expecting them to have changed the locks on my own house. They hadn't. Rookie mistake. Peter's security solutions arrived 20 minutes later. Peter was professional, maybe mid-40s, with a tool belt that looked like it had seen a lot of use. I showed him the deed. Says here you are the sole owner since 2008. That is enough for me. I want locks that can't be picked easily. Something solid. I will install grade 1 deadbolts. Commercial quality. Unless someone breaks a window, they aren't getting in without keys. Good. I will take 6 copies of every key. He studied my face for a moment. Family situation. Something like that. Say no more. I see it more than you think. 4 exterior doors needed changing. Front, back, side garage entry, main garage. Peter worked with efficient precision and I helped. Holding doors, carrying tools, testing each new lock after installation. The process was mechanical, deeply satisfying. Each lock he changed represented control regained. By 12:15, the house was fortified. The front door deadbolt clicked with solid authority. The back door handle turned smoothly under my grip. The garage entry now had a keypad code only I knew. As Peter finished the last door, I unpacked 2 wireless security cameras from their boxes. Video cameras, purchased yesterday at the big hardware store. One went over the front door, angled to capture the porch and driveway. The second was mounted over the back door, covering the patio entrance. They synced to my phone in minutes. Now I would have video evidence of everything. At 1 o'clock, I taped the eviction notice to the front door at eye level. Impossible to ignore. The document looked exactly as intimidating as Margaret intended. Bold headers, legal language, the notary seal prominent at the bottom. I photographed it in place with my phone. Proof of delivery. Then I walked through the house methodically, documenting everything. The living room furniture had been rearranged carelessly. My mother's antique lamp, the Tiffany-style piece she had left me, was missing entirely. I took a note. In the kitchen, the cabinets had been reorganized, my dishes mixed randomly with theirs. My bedroom was the worst. Rose's perfume bottles covered the dresser. Henry's clothes hung in my closet, shoving my things into a corner. The bed had different sheets, a floral print I had never bought. I photographed it all, timestamps visible on every image. Then I sat in my recliner, the one Henry had appropriated, and took it back. I made coffee in my kitchen. I set the thermostat to 72 degrees. The house felt different now, but it was mine again. At 5:47, the security camera caught Sarah's sedan pulling into the driveway. She was home early. I watched on my phone as she approached the door. She tried to use her key. Confusion crossed her face. She tried again, jiggling the handle. Nothing. She pulled out her phone. Mine rang 30 seconds later. I answered on the 3rd ring. Hello? What did you do? My key isn't working. Her voice shook with anger, not fear. I changed the locks. It is my house. You can't do this. We live here. You can't just lock us out. There is an eviction notice on the door. It explains everything. Your parents have 30 days. My parents? What about us? What about Daniel? He is your son. Daniel should have thought about that when he let you kick me out. This is insane. You are being cruel. We need our things. You can collect your belongings within the 30 days. The notice specifies the process. All further questions go to my lawyer, Margaret Reynolds. I recited the phone number clearly. She was still yelling when I ended the call. 15 minutes later, Daniel called. His voice sounded broken in a way I had never heard before. Dad, please, can we talk about this? We had chances to talk. At breakfast, when Sarah told me to leave, you chose silence. I was trying to keep the peace. Sarah's parents needed help. In my house, without asking me. Then you told me to get a hotel. That was Sarah, not me. You sat there. You said nothing. That was also your choice. Where are we supposed to go tonight? We have work tomorrow. The house has all our stuff. You will figure it out. You are resourceful enough to plan evicting your father. Apply that creativity to your own situation. His desperation seeped through the phone. At least let us get our clothes, our toiletries. The notice allows for supervised retrieval of essential items. Call my lawyer to schedule it. I ended the call. He tried 2 more times. I didn't answer. At 6 to 4, the Millers returned. The security camera captured Henry's face perfectly as he read the notice. His expression went from confusion to comprehension, and then to rage. His face turned a worrying shade of purple. Rose stood behind him, mouth moving in what I guessed were complaints. Henry called. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened to his message. His voice was poisonous, threatening lawsuits, police, and public humiliation. This isn't over, Arthur, not by a long shot. You made a big mistake today. Empty threats. Margaret had prepared me for exactly this reaction. Sarah called again. And again. By the fourth call in 10 minutes, she had switched tactics completely. Please, Arthur, be reasonable. My parents are over 60. They can't just find a place overnight. They have 30 days. That is what the law requires. I am following it exactly. We can at least stay tonight. Just tonight. We will figure something out tomorrow. No. Are you really going to make your son sleep in his car? I slept in a motel because you told me to leave. He will survive an uncomfortable night. I didn't think you were so cold. I am not cold. I am protecting what is mine. There is a difference. Contact my lawyer. I blocked her number before she could respond. The calls finally stopped. Outside, through the window, I could see them gathering on the lawn. 4 figures in the fading light, having urgent conversations, probably deciding which hotel to choose, which friend might take them in for the night. Inside, I sat in my chair, in my house, with my coffee cooling in my favorite mug. For the first time in 8 days, I felt like I could breathe. 6 days after the lockout, a letter arrived from Davidson and Associates. Their letterhead was expensive, embossed, thick paper. Inside, legal language demanded I rescind the eviction notice because Daniel had established residency in my home. I scanned it immediately and emailed it to Margaret. Her reply came 3 hours later with the subject line, "As expected, without merit." She drafted a rebuttal that dismantled their claim methodically. Daniel was an adult child living rent-free. No lease existed. Never had rent been paid. The law distinguished guests from tenants with surgical precision. His claim of residency failed on every count. I read her response twice, savoring the clarity of it. Legal language could be beautiful when it protected the truth. On the 7th day, Sarah appeared on my security camera at 2 in the afternoon. She was alone on the porch, hand raised to knock, then hesitating. No Daniel, no parents, just her, looking exhausted in a way I had never seen. Hair less styled, dark circles visible even through the camera lens. I watched her for 30 seconds before opening the door. I didn't invite her in, just stood behind the screen door with my arms crossed. The mesh barrier between us felt symbolic. Arthur, can we talk, please? As adults. Her voice aimed for calm but missed. We can talk. Right here. Can I at least come in? It is awkward standing on the porch. You made me leave this house. You can stand on the porch for 5 minutes. She flinched. That is... Okay. Look, we hired a lawyer. He says Daniel has residency rights. My lawyer says he doesn't. Mine is right. You can't just decide that. There are laws. Yes, there are. I am following them. And you. She shifted her weight, trying a different approach. My parents need more time. They can't just go back to their place. She stopped abruptly. I heard it. Clearly. Go back? I thought they sold their condo. Her face lost all color. They did. I meant they need to find a new place. That isn't what you said. You said, go back. They still own it, don't they? That isn't the point. The point is you lied. You lied. All of you. Every word fell like a stone between us. They never needed to live here. They wanted to live here. For free. In my house. You are twisting my words. I am hearing your words. For the first time. Clearly. She tried again, voice cracking this time. Please, we are family. Does that mean nothing to you? It meant everything. That is why it hurt so much when you told me to leave. I was trying to help my parents, sacrificing me, without asking, without caring. We made a mistake. Can't you forgive that? You decided I wasn't necessary. Now I have decided the same. What do you want? What would fix this? Nothing. It is already fixed. The law is clear. The eviction stands. She left without another word. Her car door slammed loud enough to echo down the street. That night she called. Not manipulative this time. Not crying. Just furious. This is impossible. This can't be happening. You can't evict us. I kept my voice measured. It isn't impossible. It is happening. The court has the paperwork. You are destroying this family, leaving my parents homeless, ruining Daniel's life. Your parents have a condo. They aren't homeless. And Daniel is an adult who made choices. They are elderly people. How can you abuse people their age? Abuse. I let that word hang for a moment. Your father told me. Just move out completely. 5 people is too many. Remember that breakfast? I remember every word. Her voice deflated. He didn't mean. He meant that. And you did too. Now, you are experiencing what you prescribed for me. I can't believe you are so vindictive. I am not vindictive. I am protecting my property. There is a difference. I ended the call. She didn't try again. Over the next few days, I monitored the situation through cameras and neighbor reports. Henry's truck passed 3 times in 1 week. Slow, deliberate passes, as if checking if I had disappeared. Rose stood on the sidewalk once, staring at the house for a full minute before walking away. Mrs. Davis called with updates I hadn't requested but appreciated. I saw them at the supermarket. Rose was complaining very loudly about inconsiderate family members. Another day. My daughter works near that budget hotel on the highway. She saw Daniel and Sarah there. They looked exhausted. The 30-day clock kept ticking. 23 days remained. Margaret called with final confirmation. Their lawyer withdrew the residency claim. Apparently realized it had no merit. How long did that take him? About 48 hours of research on his part. He learns fast. So it is over. The eviction stands, unless they want to embarrass themselves in court. Yes, they have 23 days left in the notice period. And if they don't leave, then we go to court. And a judge orders them out. But they will leave. Nobody wants an eviction on their record. I thanked her and hung up. I sat in my recliner, recovered, mine again, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Not happiness. Something colder than that. Vindication. They had believed I would back down. That family sentiment would override property rights. They had built their entire strategy on my supposed weakness. They had been wrong about me. And they were running out of time to learn just how wrong they were. 3 days later, Margaret and I returned to the courthouse. A different purpose this time. We filed civil case CV 202-500-3847. Arthur Vance versus Daniel Vance. Claim for unpaid loan. The paperwork was precise. Every number documented. Every promise recorded. $35,000 principal. Loaned the 15th of May 2022. $0 repaid as of March 2025. Interest calculated at 6% per annum per state contract law. Total claim, $42,035. The clerk stamped it with the satisfying thud of official process. Daniel would be served within 48 hours. I felt no guilt, only the clarity of numbers that don't lie. The process server found Daniel at his workplace in the industrial zone. 2 days later, mid-afternoon, during a meeting, the manila envelope arrived at his desk. Coworkers noted his face went white when he read the first page. He left work early that day. Mrs. Davis heard this from her daughter, who heard it from Sarah, who had heard it from someone at Daniel's office. Small communities have their own intelligence networks. Daniel called me that night. His voice shook. "Dad, are you suing me? Your own son. I am collecting a debt. You borrowed $35,000. You promised to pay it back. You didn't. I was going to pay you. Eventually. You know I am good for it? 3 years. Not a single payment. Not even a discussion about it. That isn't eventually. That is never. Family doesn't sue family. Family also doesn't evict family from their own homes. But you watched that happen. You chose Sarah over me. So now I am choosing legal remedy over family sentiment." His desperation leaked through the phone. "How am I supposed to pay $42,000? I don't have that kind of money. You had it when I gave it to you. You spent it. That isn't my problem." I ended the call. He tried 2 more times that night. I didn't answer. Margaret had been thorough in preparing our evidence. We organized the proof in a binder. Bank transfer confirmation, email thread with payment promises, follow-up text where Daniel acknowledged the debt. Spreadsheet showing missed payments. Interest calculation. Every document numbered, labeled, hole punched. This is prosecution-level organization, Margaret said, reviewing the final binder. 35 years managing logistics. Details matter. They do indeed, especially in court. Daniel and Sarah consulted their lawyer again. More money they didn't have for a case they couldn't win. Their lawyer was blunt, according to what filtered through the community network. The documentation was irrefutable. Email promises, bank records, zero payments. They needed to settle. Sarah tried to argue it was a gift, not a loan. The lawyer shook his head. Daniel's email explicitly called it a loan with repayment terms. They were trapped. Margaret drafted the settlement terms. $42,000 paid in 24 monthly installments of $1,750, starting April 1st. Alternative: judgment allowing wage garnishment. Liens on property. Possible bankruptcy proceedings. Sarah called me directly, skipping the lawyers entirely. This lawsuit is pure greed. You are destroying us financially. I kept my voice cold. I am collecting money owed to me. That isn't greed. It is justice. We can't afford this. With rent, bills, and now $1,750 a month, we will barely survive. You should have thought about that before telling me to get a hotel. Actions have costs. You are punishing Daniel for my decisions. Daniel made his own decision. When you told me to leave, he said nothing. When your father told me to move out completely, he said nothing. Silence is a choice. We can't pay this. Then my lawyer will garnish Daniel's wages. The court granted me that right. You called me unnecessary in my own house. Now I am showing you how necessary I was. The phone clicked off. I heard it clearly through the speaker before the line went dead. 2 weeks after filing, we had a preliminary hearing. I arrived with Margaret. Daniel showed up with his lawyer, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Sarah sat in the gallery, arms crossed, glaring at me. Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence methodically. Bank transfer, email chain, promissory language, zero payments. Mr. Vance, the judge said. The defendant borrowed $35,000 from his father. Daniel hesitated. Yes, Your Honor. Was there an understanding that you would repay this money? It was more informal. Family help. The judge held up the email printout. Your email says, Dad, this is a loan, not a gift. I will pay you back $1,000 a month. That seems explicit. Daniel's shoulders slumped. Yes, Your Honor. Have you made any payments on this debt in 3 years? No. Barely audible. Then the plaintiff's motion is granted. Judgment entered for $42,035. The gavel fell with finality. After the hearing, Margaret briefed me on enforcement. They will try to skip payments. Count on it. What happens when they do? After 2 missed payments, we file for wage garnishment. His employer sends us part of his paycheck before he even sees it. After 4 missed payments, we can pursue additional collections, liens, asset seizure, if applicable. Will they test me? Absolutely. They still think you are soft. They think family ties will make you forgive the debt eventually. They are wrong. Her slight smile acknowledged the truth we both knew. I know. Make sure they learn it quickly. First missed payment. Immediate enforcement action. Teach them you meant every word. 3 days later, Daniel's lawyer called Margaret. The client accepted the payment terms. The formal agreement was signed that afternoon. First payment due April 1st. I put a reminder in the calendar. Through Mrs. Davis's network, I learned the Millers had found an apartment. 2 bedrooms near 32nd Street and Main, about 4 miles away. $1,400 a month, significantly more than they wanted to pay. Rose was already complaining. Mrs. Davis heard her at the supermarket talking to a stranger about the terrible apartment with smelly carpet and impossible parking. Our son-in-law forced us there, Rose said, apparently unaware of how arrogant she sounded. We just needed a place to stay temporarily, and he evicted us. Elderly people. The stranger, according to Mrs. Davis, had looked horrified, but not at me, at Rose. I sat in my house that night, my house, legally and morally mine, and reviewed the timeline. Eviction notice, delivered. Legal challenge, defeated. Condo lie, exposed. Lawsuit, won. Payment plan, accepted. 4 weeks ago they had told me to leave my own house. Now they were paying the price for that decision. $1,750 a month, for 2 years. Justice was learning. It wasn't always fast, but it could be thorough. Daniel's first payment credited on April 1st, $1,750, transferred electronically, marked as loan repayment, court ordered. Those words in the transaction description felt like vindication every time I checked my account. 2 days later, a group email arrived from Jenna, Daniel's cousin I hadn't seen in 5 years. Subject: Family Gathering, April 12th. The message invited me to her house to discuss recent family tensions and find a resolution. I recognized the trap immediately. This wasn't mediation. It was an ambush. Aunt Laura from the next town over. First. Arthur, I heard what you did to Sarah's parents. They are elderly people. How could you? Then Uncle Thomas from another city. Your son is struggling to make payments. This isn't how family treats family. Daniel's brother, Mark, who rarely called. Dad would be rolling in his grave watching how you treat your grandson's mother. Every caller had the same script. Variations of cruelty, greed, abandoning family values. They had been fed Sarah's narrative. Poor, elderly, Millers victimized by heartless Arthur. I didn't argue with any of them. Instead, I listened. Then I responded with 3 sentences. I understand you are worried. You have heard one version. Can I send you documentation so you can see the full picture? Most accepted. Some reluctantly, others genuinely curious. That night I drafted a detailed email. 5 pages, single-spaced, chronological. February. The Millers move in without asking. Attempted eviction at breakfast. Motel stay. Legal consultation. Lockout. Revelation of the condo lie. Daniel's unpaid loan. Court judgment. Every section included proof. Photos, emails, legal documents, and crucially, a 45-second security camera clip of Henry saying, "Just move out completely during that first week." I uploaded the video to YouTube, unlisted, shared only with family. Margaret reviewed the document before I sent it. This is bulletproof. Anyone reading this objectively will understand completely. I sent personalized versions to every relative who had called, 9 people in total. In 48 hours, 3 called back. Aunt Laura first. Arthur. I had no idea. Sarah made it sound completely different. I am so sorry. Uncle Thomas. Those camera recordings. That Henry guy is quite a character. You had every right. Even Mark admitted, I shouldn't have called you without hearing both sides. Not everyone changed their mind. Some remained convinced I should have worked it out. But the consensus shifted drastically. Jenna emailed me privately on April 9th. The gathering is canceled. Several people are now questioning Sarah's version of events. Sarah's support network collapsed. 3 days later, the day the gathering would have happened, Daniel and Sarah appeared together at my door, mid-afternoon, unexpectedly. Through the camera, I saw them standing together, a united front, or perhaps Daniel providing moral support while Sarah made her play. I opened the door, but not the screen. Sarah spoke first, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. Arthur, we want to apologize. Truly. Can we start over? She looked at Daniel, who nodded on cue. Please. For the sake of the family. I studied her face. Her mouth formed words of remorse, but her eyes calculated. This was a new tactic, not genuine change. Why are you apologizing specifically? She hesitated slightly. For not communicating better, for the way things happened. The way things happened? You mean when you told me to sleep on the couch or get a hotel? Yes. That? It came out wrong. We were stressed with my parents. Your parents who lied about selling their condo? Who moved into my house without asking? Daniel intervened. Dad, we are trying to make peace here. Can't you meet us halfway? Halfway would have been asking my permission before your in-laws moved in. Halfway would have been defending me at that breakfast. There is no halfway anymore. There is legal compliance and consequences. Sarah's mask slipped slightly. So that is it? You will just punish us forever? It isn't punishment. It is justice. You decided I was unnecessary. I am proving you wrong. They left without another word. No door slams this time, just a defeated silence. I watched them drive away on my security camera. Then I sat in my recliner, recovered, mine, and opened my laptop. 9 relatives had received my documentation. 6 changed their position. 2 remained neutral. Only one, Sarah's aunt, remained hostile. The truth had worked better than any argument could have. I created a spreadsheet to track Daniel's payments. First payment, April 1st. On time. Remaining balance, $40,000. Projected completion, March 2027. If no missed payments, 23 months of accountability ahead. Through Mrs. Davis's network, I learned Daniel was selling his car, the one he bought with my $35,000. A for sale sign appeared in the back window. They were liquidating assets, struggling financially. When Sarah and Daniel had arrived for their apology, I had noticed details my logistical brain cataloged automatically. Sarah's designer purse was gone, replaced by a cheaper one. Daniel's shirt was wrinkled. Both looked exhausted. Their appeal was born of desperation, not epiphany. That night, I reviewed the security footage from the last month. Henry driving by slowly, 3 times. Rose standing on the sidewalk, staring at the house before walking away. Sarah arriving for her failed visit. Daniel and Sarah's final appeal. All documented, all time-stamped. All evidence of their continued attempts to manipulate, pressure, or guilt me into backing down. None of it worked. I was learning something valuable. When you stop engaging emotionally, when you let documentation speak instead of defending yourself, manipulators lose their power. They had built their entire strategy on my supposed weakness. On family sentiment overriding property rights, they had miscalculated completely, and with 23 months of payments ahead, they would have plenty of time to understand their mistake. Early May brought an unexpected revelation. I was watering the front lawn when Mrs. Davis approached from next door, her expression hesitant. "Arthur, I need to tell you something. I should have mentioned it sooner." I put down the hose. "What is it, Patricia?" "When those people, the Millers, were staying with you, my grandson looked through the side window one day. I know, nosy kids, but he saw that man, Henry, moving furniture very roughly. He heard a crash. Saw the woman cleaning frantically. My pulse quickened. When was that?" "The second week they were there, mid-February. I assumed you knew about whatever broke. But seeing all these legal issues, I thought maybe you should know they damaged things." "I didn't know. Thank you for telling me." After she left, I went inside and started a systematic inspection. I had cleaned the house after getting it back. Surface clutter, rearranging displaced items, but I hadn't looked for structural damage. Now I walked through every room with different eyes. The dining room was first. My wife's antique table, inherited from her grandmother, appraised at $3,000 a decade ago. It had a long, deep gouge in the finish. Deep, ugly, cutting through the veneer. Something heavy had been dropped or dragged across it. I knelt by the table, tracing the damage with my finger. This table had survived 70 years intact. 3 weeks with the Millers destroyed it. In the living room, 3 circular burn marks marred the hardwood floor near the fireplace, each several inches in diameter. Cigarette burns, or dropped embers, despite my strict no-smoking policy. The master bathroom toilet was running constantly. The water bill had gone up $40. The fill valve was damaged. It hadn't been broken before. Guest bathroom, cracked tile, loose faucet handle. Each discovery fed something cold and methodical inside me. I called Precision Property Appraisals. Raymond Torres arrived the next morning with cameras, measuring tools, and a clipboard. He spent 3 hours documenting everything. "This is significant damage," he said, examining the table. "Single impact, heavy object. See how the gouge goes with the grain? Something was dragged. Can it be repaired?" "Not to original condition. This is 1,940 seconds craftsmanship. Hand finished. A modern repair would be visible. Replacement value is your only option." It was my wife's grandmother's table. Raymond's expression softened, but stayed professional. "I understand. That makes it irreplaceable, sentimentally. But we can only assess market value. Based on comparable antiques, $3,000 is conservative." His final report detailed everything. Antique table, $3,000. Hardwood floor repair, $2,800. Plumbing, $1,200. Tile work, $900. Additional minor damages, $600. Total, $8,500. "This is court-quality documentation," Raymond said, handing me the bound report. You won't have trouble proving this. I paid him $400. Money well spent. Margaret drafted a demand letter to Henry and Rose Miller. Itemized damages. Appraisal report attached. Payment requested within 14 days. Alternative. Civil litigation. The letter went via certified mail. Signature required. 5 days later, Henry called me. His voice was venomous. This is blackmail. You can't prove we did any of that. We aren't paying a dime. I kept my voice cold. The appraisal is professional and documented. The choice is yours. Pay voluntarily or explain to a judge why you won't. We aren't paying a single penny. Sue me if you want. You won't win. I have won every case so far. I will win this one too. He hung up. I called Margaret immediately. File the lawsuit. Before filing, I remembered something. In early February, I had photographed the house for insurance policy renewal. Those photos showed every room in perfect condition. I downloaded them from my phone's cloud backup, verified the metadata. The dates confirmed early February, before the Millers arrived. This evidence was a smoking gun for the condition of the house prior to their occupancy. The hearing took place 3 weeks later. Small claims court. Judge Patricia Medina presiding. Henry represented himself. He couldn't afford another lawyer. Rose sat beside him, looking miserable. I arrived with Margaret and 3 binders of evidence. Henry argued the damages were pre-existing and I was harassing elderly people. Judge Medina reviewed my evidence methodically. Before photos showing pristine conditions. After photos showing damage. Raymond's professional appraisal. The notarized statement from Mrs. Davis describing what her grandson witnessed. Mr. Miller, the judge said, looking up. You claim these damages pre-existed your occupancy. Do you have any evidence supporting that? Henry stammered. We were only there a few weeks. We didn't do all that damage. That isn't what I asked. Do you have photographs, testimony, any documentation showing this damage existed before February? We didn't think to take photos. Why would we? Mr. Vance, on the other hand, has dated photographs showing pristine conditions before your arrival and documentation of damages afterward. He also has a professional appraisal and neighbor testimony. That neighbor is lying. Her kid was trespassing. Looking through a window from an adjacent property is not trespassing. The testimony is credible. Judge Medina closed the folder. Mr. Miller, you occupied Mr. Vance's property and during that time damages occurred. The preponderance of evidence indicates you are responsible. Henry's voice turned desperate. We can't afford this. We live on fixed income. Then you shouldn't have damaged someone else's property. Judgment for the plaintiff. $8,500 plus $293 court costs. Payment due within 30 days. The gavel fell. Outside the courtroom. Margaret briefed me. That was decisive. He had no defense. Will they actually pay? They will have to. If they don't, we garnish bank accounts. Put liens on their condo. They still own that, remember? I had almost forgotten. They had lied about selling it, then damaged my house while living there rent-free. How long until they pay? 30 days or enforcement begins, I guess. They will liquidate something fast. Maybe that truck Henry drives. They can't risk liens on the condo. It is their only real asset. Good. They should feel what it is like to lose something they value. Through the neighborhood network, I learned 2 weeks later that the Millers had sold Henry's truck. The old truck he had parked in my driveway that first day. Claiming my spot, they used the money to pay the judgment. Their comfortable retirement plan, living rent-free in a nice house, saving money, keeping their condo as backup, had collapsed completely. Now they paid $1,400 monthly for a cheap apartment. Their truck was gone, and they had handed me $8,500 for damages they had caused through carelessness and arrogance. I sat in my dining room that night, looking at the scarred table I would have to replace. It hurt knowing my wife's grandmother's table was ruined, but the pain was manageable because justice had been done. 3 legal victories now: eviction, debt collection, property damage. Each reinforced what I had learned. Documentation beats emotion. Facts beat manipulation. And the legal system works when you use it correctly. They had thought I was weak. Thought family sentiment would shield them from consequences. They had been wrong about everything. Daniel's third payment arrived in mid-June. $1,750, exactly on time. I updated my spreadsheet. Remaining balance $36,785. 21 months ahead. The payment came from their joint account, but I felt the strain behind those numbers. Between court-ordered payments, rent for the modest two-bedroom apartment they had found, and regular expenses, they were drowning financially. Through the neighborhood network, details filtered back. Mr. Carter saw Daniel's car at the supermarket near midnight, likely shopping for clearance discounts. Mrs. Davis mentioned Sarah looked exhausted at the pharmacy. Elena Rodriguez saw them arguing in their apartment parking lot, voices carrying through open windows. I didn't seek this information. It found me. In late June, Mrs. Davis heard something through the thin walls of the Miller's apartment. Henry and Rose arguing about money, blaming everyone but themselves. "Our savings are gone, Henry. Gone." Rose's voice carried desperation. Henry kept insisting it was all my fault, that he should sue for emotional distress. Rose's exhausted reply, "With what lawyer? We can barely afford food." They hadn't learned anything. Early July brought another development. Jenna called while I was pulling weeds from the front flower beds, restored now after months of neglect. "Arthur, Sarah asked me to reach out. She wants to propose something." I wiped dirt from my hands, sat on the porch step. "I am listening." "She is willing to publicly acknowledge her mistakes, apologize to you, to the family. She just asks that you consider dropping the remaining debt payments. Start fresh. Start fresh. As if the last 6 months didn't happen. People make mistakes, Arthur. She is trying to make amends. Amends would have been not kicking me out of my house. Amends would have been Daniel defending me at that breakfast. This isn't amends. It is negotiating consequences. So that is a no. Compromise was possible before they told me to leave my own house. It is too late now. The judgments stand, every dollar, every payment, until satisfied." Jenna sighed. "You have changed, Arthur." "No. I finally stopped letting people take advantage of me. There is a difference." 2 days later, Daniel appeared alone at my door. Early evening, summer heat just starting to fade. Through the security camera, I saw him sit in his car for 5 minutes, gathering courage. When he finally approached, I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He stood on the porch looking 20 pounds lighter than 6 months ago. Dark circles under his eyes. "Dad, I need to say this. I was wrong. About everything. I should have defended you. I should have said no when Sarah's parents moved in. I am sorry." The words sounded genuine. Too late, but genuine. "You are sorry now, 6 months and $5,250 in payments later. I was sorry before. I just didn't know how to fix it. You fix it by standing up when it matters. You stayed silent when Henry told me to leave. Silent when Sarah demanded my bedroom. Silent when I packed my bags. I thought they would calm down. I thought we would work it out. You thought wrong. And now you are living with those thoughts." His voice turned desperate. "Is there any way we can repair this? Any way back? You should have regretted it when you stayed silent at that table. That is when a sorry would have mattered. Now it is just noise." He left looking more defeated than when he arrived. I watched his taillights disappear down the street and then went back to my evening routine. That night, lying in my bed, my bedroom, in my house, I thought about Daniel's confession. Part of me recognized his pain was real, but I had learned to distinguish between regret for actions and regret for consequences. He regretted paying $17.50 a month. He didn't regret betraying his father. The difference mattered. Through July, the pressure on them mounted. Mrs. Davis mentioned Sarah's car had a cracked windshield they hadn't repaired in 6 weeks. Mr. Carter saw them consolidating bank accounts, likely closing redundant ones to save fees. The Millers called Sarah constantly. Rose's emotional blackmail about their terrible apartment. Henry's complaints about everything. His demands for help Sarah couldn't afford to give. I learned of one call through Mrs. Davis, who was on the phone with Elena when Sarah's mother called her. Sarah finally snapped. "We are paying your court judgment, our rent, and your father's lawsuit. We have nothing left." The family was fracturing under the weight of consequences they had never imagined. Their comfortable plan living rent-free, saving money, keeping the condo as backup had turned into a cascading disaster. Financial stress, breeding marital conflict, breeding parental resentment, breeding more financial stress. A cycle with no exit except time and accountability. I sat on my porch one evening in late July, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and purple. My house was quiet behind me, restored to how it should be. No invasions, no manipulations, no one telling me to leave my own home. Just peace. Inside, my spreadsheet waited on the desk. 21 months of payments still ahead, but I didn't count them with anger anymore. Just patience. Justice, I had learned, wasn't always fast, but it was thorough. The fifth payment arrived in early August, at 11:47 p.m. on the due date, just under the wire. I checked my banking app the next morning, saw the deposit, updated my spreadsheet. Remaining balance, $33,285, 19 months ahead. The sender account name. It had changed from Daniel and Sarah Vance joint account to just Daniel Vance. Something had shifted. 3 days later, Mrs. Davis mentioned it casually while getting her mail. "Did you hear about Daniel and Sarah?" Apparently she filed for divorce. I kept my expression neutral. "I see." Financial stress, according to Elena's daughter at the courthouse. And her parents calling constantly, complaining. That tends to happen when people make bad decisions. That night, a text arrived from Jenna. "Thought you should know. Sarah filed papers last week. Said she couldn't handle the financial stress and constant fighting. Daniel is devastated." I read it twice, put my phone down, and realized I felt nothing. No vindication, no satisfaction, no guilt. Just the quiet acknowledgement that consequences had rippled further than anyone expected. Through Mr. Carter, I learned the Millers remained in their cheap apartment. Rose had been seen at the local food bank. Their savings, drained by the $8,500 judgment, legal fees, and moving costs, never recovered. Henry drove a 20-year-old sedan now. His truck sold months ago. They weren't destitute, just diminished, living the modest retirement they had tried to escape. In mid-August, I sat on my back deck, renovated last month with new composite decking, coffee in hand, my favorite mug reclaimed from where Rose had shoved it to the back of the cabinet. The house behind me was clean, organized, mine again. The antique table was gone, too damaged to save, but I had chosen its replacement myself, and the space felt right. Mr. Carter walked by, waved, came over to chat. "Nice job on this deck. Looks professional." "Thanks. Did it last month. Place looks great, you know. A lot of people around here respect how you handled all this. Standing up for yourself. Not backing down when family tried to pressure you." I offered a slight smile. "Just protected what belongs to me. More than property. Principle. You showed people they can't just take advantage because they are family." "Exactly. Family doesn't mean surrender, it means respect." They forgot that. After Mr. Carter left, I walked through my house. Morning routine restored. Waking at 5:30. Coffee in my reorganized kitchen. Reading the news in the breakfast nook. Thermostat at 72 degrees. Recliner positioned exactly where I wanted it. The silence wasn't empty. It was peaceful. That evening I found an envelope in my mailbox. Handwritten address, Daniel's familiar script. Inside, a check for $17.50. The sixth payment. Arriving early this time. And a single-page letter. "Dad, I understand now how wrong I was. About everything. I let Sarah and her parents manipulate the situation. I should have defended you. I should have seen what was happening. I am paying the price now, literally and figuratively. Sarah is gone. My savings are gone. But I deserved this. I failed you when you needed me. I hope one day you can forgive me. Daniel." I stood by the mailbox as the sun went down, painting the sky orange and purple. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it carefully and slid it back into the envelope. Understanding came at a high cost for Daniel. After 6 payments, after his marriage collapsed, after everything fell apart, the letter asked for forgiveness. Someday, maybe. But not because he asked, but because I decided it was time. I went inside, placed the letter in my desk drawer with other legal documents, and returned to the deck. The August heat was fading into a pleasant evening. I held my coffee mug, watching the colors deepen in the sky. "They thought I would fold," I said aloud to no one. "They thought family obligation would override self-respect." I paused, sipped coffee. They were wrong. Another pause, watching the sky turn. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it for justice. There is a difference. I set the mug down carefully. And justice has been done. My house, my rules, my peace. 19 months of payments stretched ahead. But I didn't count them with anger, only patience. Each deposit was accountability made tangible, consequences made real. The Millers lived diminished, learning that shortcuts have costs. Sarah had walked away from the wreckage she helped create. Daniel paid monthly while finally understanding what he had lost. And I sat in my restored home, drinking coffee as the sun disappeared behind the mountains. Mrs. Davis had invited me to dinner next week. I had accepted. The Homeowners Association meeting was Thursday. I would attend, as always. Life had returned to the patterns I enjoyed before the chaos of February. It wasn't victory. It was restoration. I thought about responding to Daniel's letter. Maybe eventually. Not yet. Time would tell if his understanding translated into sustained change or if it was just remorse for consequences. Either way, the payments would continue. The spreadsheet would track them. The debt would be settled. In 2 years, give or take. Inside, my phone chimed with a text from Margaret. Just checking in. Everything stable. I typed back. Completely. Thanks for everything. Her reply came quickly. You did the hard part. I just filed paper. I smiled at that. The hard part hadn't been the legal work. It was drawing the line, holding it, refusing to back down when everyone said families should forgive and forget. I hadn't forgotten, but I had moved forward. That was enough. The sky darkened to deep blue. Stars began to emerge. The neighborhood settled into the quiet of night. Somewhere, Daniel was reading my silence, understanding that I hadn't answered his letter. Maybe that silence said everything needed. I stood up, stretched, picked up my empty mug. I walked into my house, clean, quiet, mine, and locked the door behind me. Tomorrow I would wake at 5:30, make coffee, read the news, water the garden. I would live my life the way I should have been allowed to from the beginning. Justice hadn't been fast, but it had been thorough. And that, I had learned, was what mattered.